Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Yo to Bolt fam, it's the director. Chargers fans, well, we know a couple of things, right? The Chargers will be making their way to the postseason. We also know that the Chargers will be closing out their regular season with a matchup at Denver versus the Broncos here in Week 18. So I guess the big question is, well, what's on the line? The Chargers cannot be pushed out of the postseason no matter what the result is of this game. So what are the Chargers playing for, and what's the right move in terms of who's sitting, who's resting? Can the Chargers take advantage of this valuable opportunity to get their players upright before going into the postseason? So we got a lot of questions that we're going to be answering in this one today. Should be a good one. Either way, I think the Chargers got a good chance at winning this game, even if the backups play a majority of the snaps. Now, before we do jump into this video too crazy, guys, as you guys know, the whole situation with Damar Hamlin was one of the most horrific things I think I've ever seen in the sport of football. Luckily and gratefully, if you guys have not heard, it seems that Damar has woken up and things are trending to him coming back to full health. Hopefully, I know, again, full health, maybe, we don't know, but the good thing is he's back. And I think us collectively as NFL fans can breathe a sigh of relief and really just appreciate the whole fandom coming together, making the right decisions, and postponing the games and prioritizing Hamlin's health over everything else. So shout out to the Bolt fam and all NFL fans for your thoughts and prayers and support of Damar Hamlin. We're all very, very happy to hear that he's okay. So, guys, before we get into this one, lots of questions to answer. Before we do, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. Small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps out a lot. Let's get into this one. Lights, camera, action. The Chargers at Broncos, regular season finale, Week 18 game preview. Let's jump right into it, man. Before we do, also wanted to shout out the sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. If you guys haven't had an opportunity to play this season, one of my favorite things to do during the regular season, and yes, in the postseason as well. This will be our last week to get our feet wet before the postseason. If you guys want to sign in, use code DIRECTOR to match your first deposit up to $100 when you do sign up. Get in on the action, get ready for the postseason, and of course, you can enjoy other sports, NHL, NBA, etc., during the NFL offseason as well. So let's jump into this one, Bolt fam. The Chargers are going to the playoffs. It's been a couple of weeks now that we've clinched that playoff spot. Still in disbelief, might I add, but things could get even better for the Chargers if they play their cards right here in Week 18. So what's the situation? Let's start off with that. What's the situation for the Chargers in the postseason? Well, as of right now, you guys can tell, the Chiefs likely, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that delayed game. Of course, we don't have any update on that quite yet, but the Chiefs and Bills fighting for that #1 seed. We got the Bengals, Chargers, and Ravens to follow. The Chargers currently at the 5 spot are looking really, really good. That 5th seed is something worth protecting. And I understand there's a lot of thoughts in between, well, the Chargers want to protect their players. They want to go in healthy. They also want to go in with some momentum and protect that 5th seed. I would say both arguments are pretty much warranted at this point, but we're going to present some evidence in this video to kind of help you guys come to your own conclusions as to how the Chargers should play out this last game versus the Broncos. Currently at the 5th seed, this is something, in my opinion at least, that's worth protecting. Okay, and they may not have to protect it depending on the situation going into this game. All right, for those of you who don't know, the Chargers may not even have to win this game in order to keep the 5th seed. But in order for that to happen, they're going to have to watch the scoreboard about the early games before our game even kicks off. Okay, a lot depends on the result of the Ravens versus Bengals game that will be transpiring in the early window of Sunday football, okay? So before the Chargers even take a snap on Sunday, they're going to know if they have to win versus the Broncos or not to protect that 5th seed. And for those of you who don't know, we need the Ravens to lose that game versus the Bengals, okay? Now, if the Ravens do win, however, we'll need to beat the Broncos to protect that 5th seed. And depends on who you ask. I am of the opinion that that's going to be something worth playing for. Okay, so that's where we lay as of right now. The Chargers have the 5th seed. If the Ravens win, we're going to have to go in guns a-blazing to take down these Broncos to protect that 5th spot. There may be more to play in a factor when it comes to the postponed Bills-Bengals game, but we don't have much news on that yet, when it's going to be played. All we know is that it's likely going to be played at a later date. So to help address more questions, the biggest one that I'm hearing about this game in particular is who to start and who to sit. The Chargers have a pretty rare opportunity in front of them right now. They clinched their playoff spot, a couple of weeks ago. Chargers fans have been putting their feet up, enjoying the remainder of the games. Not much sweating to do in terms of what's going to happen to the Chargers making it into the postseason, but there's still some decisions to be made, okay? Earlier this week, we heard from Brandon Staley that he wanted to start everybody, that we're going to be treating this game like any other game. You're going to see Herbert, you're going to see, Bosa and Mack and all of our star players out there on the field. Well, later on in the week, we also heard that it could depend on the result of, again, the Ravens and Bengals game. And of course, if you don't have to win versus the Broncos, you're going to take this opportunity to rest your players and go in as healthy as possible. Justin Herbert, as well as other Chargers, have been listed as banged up, okay? As of right now, I don't know who's out and who's in. We're recording this video a little bit early this week, but from what I'm hearing, Justin Herbert got a little bit of a banged up issue. I think it's on one of his shoulders, and of course, there's a bunch of other Chargers that are listed here and there. The one big one that I did want to update you guys on is Derwin James. It seems that he's projected practicing full. Okay, so with that in mind, I feel like a week of healing could make a huge difference for this team, especially when you're talking about your franchise quarterback. So again, as we're going through this video, you guys in the comment section below, you leave me your opinions. Do we start guys? Do we sit guys? If the Chargers need to win this game to protect the 5th seed, do you prioritize the health of the players over that win? And again, of course, we prioritize health over everything, but at the same time, it's more of an insurance factor at this point, okay? So what's on the line with this game? Well, there's a couple of things I would say statistically that carry some significance for Chargers fans and its fandom and its players, okay? The first of which being Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler, I think he needs something like 110, 120 yards to surpass 1,000 yards rushing this season. That would be a huge accomplishment. When's the last time the Chargers had a 1,000-yard rusher? Kind of been a minute. That would be a huge accomplishment. Also solidifying himself as one of the best running backs in the league, of which I feel like he deserves more recognition in. Either way, I think I saw a quote by Austin Eckler a couple of days ago saying, yeah, the Pro Bowl is cool. I acknowledge that, he hasn't been selected despite all these stats, but he says they got their eyes on a different bowl, which of course I'm sure you guys can draw your own conclusions on that. The other thing to keep in mind is Justin Herbert. This guy is one touchdown away from breaking another record. It seems like you breathe in a different atmosphere when you're Justin Herbert, because every single week you're about to break a new record. And this week it's going to be most touchdowns in the first 3 seasons, which right now he's currently tied with Dan Marino in. That would be pretty significant, and again, more of a stat boost than anything else. But in real life football, the things that actually matter, in my opinion, the biggest thing that you want to protect outside of that 5th seed, of course, is going to be momentum. You want to go in with as many wins as possible. Confidence and momentum, one of the most underrated things in sports, in my opinion. That's a big reason why I want the Chargers to go in and take this game. But again, there's a big emphasis on protecting your players, protecting the health, and giving yourself a bit of insurance on that front. Lastly, the other thing that's kind of on the line here, I would like to see Joey Bosa, Derwin James get into game shape. I think Derwin's in less of a risk of that. He's been playing the majority of the season. Maybe we do see some reps for Joey Bosa. So let's segue from that segment into this next segment called Why Not Both, right? Why does it have to be so black and white? Why is it either rest everybody or start everybody? I think that you can find a healthy mix somewhere, okay? And I think this exists in terms of the Chargers starting some players, maybe in a limited snap count, and then giving a majority of those snaps to your backups. I think that's kind of where I exist in terms of my opinion, okay? And again, the name of the game for me is limited snaps. You could make a case to not start Justin Herbert, in my opinion. As sad as it would be to see him not break Dan Marino's record, it's not the end of the world, and he's still widely viewed as one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He doesn't need that touchdown to carry that opinion for himself, okay? His status in terms of his injury, the injury report, is enough to make me at least consider resting Justin Herbert. But there's also a world in which Justin Herbert goes out there for 2-3 drives, gets that touchdown, and sits on the sideline for the rest of the game, okay? The other unit I think should be rested, the offensive line. The offensive line, more specifically Corey Linsley and Trey Pipkins, I don't think they should be starting this game. As much as it would be awesome to see these guys out there, maybe just combining them with the Justin Herbert reps at least, I think protecting Corey Linsley should be, again, one of those top priorities for the Chargers offense, because when he's on the field, we see a significant boost in performance than when he's off the field. So maybe in terms of offensive linemen to rest, you're going to want to rest Corey Linsley if you have the opportunity. On the end, too, you also have right tackle Trey Pipkins, who's been playing banged up for how many weeks now? I think something like an MCL issue. Both of these guys are vital. So if you have an opportunity to rest these guys, maybe take that opportunity while you have it. The other unit I think is worth mentioning is going to be that wide receiver core. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, both these guys have been banged up at some point this season. Considerable amount of time for Keenan Allen. Maybe we give them limited reps this week. Maybe we let them get their feet wet, stay in that momentum, in that game shape, but we give them a limited amount of reps. That's kind of where I'm at with them. Austin Eckler, I wouldn't be too upset if he wasn't active this game. Again, heart-shattering to not see him given the opportunity to go after those 1,000 yards. But again, maybe we can give him some limited snaps so he at least try and attempt it. Either way, he was also a little bit banged up before going into last week's game. If you have an opportunity to rest him up, I say it's not a bad idea to exercise that. And then finally on defense, talking a little bit about some of the guys that maybe should be sat a little bit. Khalil Mack, I think Joey Bosa should see maybe about similar snaps to what he did last week because he's trying to get back into game shape, right? But I feel like Khalil Mack's been holding down the fort all season long. Maybe we give him a breather, right? The DBs. I feel like the Chargers' biggest strength as a team these last several weeks has been with their defensive backs, their secondary. Maybe that's worth protecting, right? Let's preserve that. Limit reps to maybe our top 3 DBs out there. Of course, I think we're going to rest Derwin James this game. I think of him being in concussion protocol, him coming back to full health. I don't see a reason to have to roll him out quite yet. But our other guys, Asante Samuel Jr., Michael Davis, Bryce Callahan, maybe worth limiting their reps or even letting them rest completely. That's kind of where I'm at with the players. Also, to know, Xander Horvath was limited this week as well. I said we give him a rest before going into the postseason. Now, when you rest players, inevitably what you're going to have to do is start your backups, your second, third, sometimes 4-stringers and practice squad players. But I also view that as an opportunity for these players to step up, really show that we've got position groups locked down, maybe even give more opportunities for more reps in the postseason if warranted. Maybe a smaller chance at that, but a chance nonetheless. So this next segment is called Opportunities to Step Up. Now, there's going to be several players that can step up and prove their values as backups. And the first one that I wanted to mention was Easton Stick. I want to see what Stick looks like right now. We've got a nice sample size of him in seasons previous. I know he got a lot of Chargers fans excited. He was the first quarterback in a very long time to possess any speed at the position for Chargers fans. That certainly got us excited in the preseason of 2018 or 2017. But the real reason I want to see what Stick has got is we've seen the sample size of Chase Daniel, even more recently when they were able to rest their starters at the bottom half of last week's game. And Chase Daniel's short stint looks a little meh to me. I want to see what kind of playability we got in Easton Stick at this present moment. It's been a while since, the preseason that we've seen him given a shot. Let's see what we got at the quarterback position and see what's more worth rolling out with in the postseason as far as activated players. Either way, I think it's a good idea. My plan at quarterback would be, let's start, if we're going to rest Justin Herbert anyway, let's give equal reps to Chase Daniel and Easton Stick. Kind of treat it as a preseason game in that way. Next, I want to see as much Isaiah Spiller and Larry Roundtree as possible this game. Make sure your running back 3 decision and player and position is firm. Now, we know Austin Eckler's been going out there. He's going crazy. We want to make sure he's as good and ready to go for the postseason as possible. But I also do like what the Chargers have done these past couple of weeks. If you guys didn't know this, Sony Michel let go from the Chargers when we activated Joey Bosa. Sony Michel, extremely underwhelming. Under 3 yards a carry. It was something that the Chargers felt they needed to move on from. Well, we know what we've got in Joshua Kelly. What about these other 2 guys? We saw a little bit of Larry Roundtree last week. Not much of Isaiah Spiller for the season as a whole. Maybe now's a good opportunity to see what these guys got to offer, especially versus a defense like the Denver Broncos. As far as wide receiver is concerned, this position actually doesn't worry me too much because you guys know what happened this season? Yeah, we were missing Keenan Allen and Mike Williams a lot in 2022. And that gave us the opportunity to see what the backups look like. And we've got plenty of looks at what that unit can look like. And honestly, I would say because of the talent of Justin Herbert, the wide receivers did carry their own for a long time. So I would say this week, again, it wouldn't offend me if they wanted to rest Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and let guys like Palmer, Carter, and Bandy handle this game, because we've seen it. We've seen these players step up to the plate and perform. You could maybe even elevate other guys from the practice squad like Keelan Doss for Joe Reed for this game. I think it's a good opportunity to rest those wide receivers, because you do have good wide receivers that can step up in their absence. Now, as far as the offensive line is concerned, this is actually a very interesting proposal I'm about to make to you guys. Okay, now it mainly involves the man you just saw in Jamari Sawyer. The Chargers stand out offensive lineman from this rookie class, one of the biggest steals of the season. He's been absolutely fantastic, and I would like to see some movement this game. Okay, again, purely academic, purely experimental. I want to see what Jamari Sawyer has to offer at his natural position, guard, more specifically left guard. I want to see him moved inside a little bit this game. Give me a sample size of his game at left guard so it gives us options going into the postseason. Because for those of you who haven't heard, there's some big news coming around the corner, hopefully very soon. It seems that the Chargers Pro Bowl left tackle Rashawn Slater could be making a return any day now, and the views on it is very optimistic. We don't expect him obviously to be back this week, but I would say there's a solid shot for him to return in the wild card game for the Chargers in the postseason. So what do you want to do with that situation? Well, in my opinion, you're going to want to see what you've got along the offensive line to continue improving it. Jamari Sawyer's been a standout dude this season, such a huge steal, and really held down the fort for the Chargers at left tackle. He was fantastic. Why would we want to bench the guy as soon as our starter's ready to return? Well, of course, you're not going to keep Rashawn Slater on the sideline. You're going to put him right in there at left tackle and feel really good about it. But Jamari Sawyer's natural position at left guard has seen a lot of struggles lately from Matt Filer. He definitely saw a bit of a dip in 2022, has not really been performing up to his standard. At this point, in this game, I would like to see, even if somebody else has to play left tackle for, let's say, a drive or two, right? Let's see what Jamari Sawyer looks like at left guard. So in the event of a Slater return, before the upcoming wild card game, we can give ourselves the option of moving Sawyer to left guard now that we've got some tape behind it. And that would allow us to bench Filer or maybe let him move to swing tackle, whatever the case may be. We now have the best possible assembly of offensive linemen prepared and ready to go into the wild card because we tested it. We got some tape and we got some feel goods about that look due to the flexibility of Week 18. Hopefully all that made sense, but I think moving Sawyer around just a little bit this game, in my opinion, is pretty important to what you can do going into the future. Finally, let's talk a little bit about the defense. On defense, one unit does kind of concern me, the defensive line. That unit of which we had like 4 or 5 really solid backups coming into the year, well, they kind of went down one by one. And now we're at the point where, well, we're going to have to protect what we got. The defensive line all of a sudden is a bit scarce. You can still use guys like Braden Fayoko and Morgan Fox and Sebastian Joseph Day, but I would say sparingly, right? Give me looks at guys like Tyler Davison and Aaron Crawford, maybe guys that you elevate up from the practice squad just for this game to see what we got in terms of depth. Because the guys that we have starting right now, that's worth protecting. If that unit gets crippled any further, the Chargers' already terrible run defense could become an ultimate Achilles heel with another absence of a guy that's a huge difference maker like Sebastian Joseph Day or Braden Fayoko. Now, what about edge? Well, the Chargers, in my opinion, they're about to get a significant boost, and so far it's kind of like we're holding our cards close to the vest, right? It's just like now we got that Joey Bosa card back in our hand. Kind of gave a little sample size of what that could have looked like last week, but we're not going to really unleash it until week 1 of the playoffs in that wild card game. So, that being said, I do think it gives us an opportunity to get an even larger sample size of other guys we have in there. I do want to see Joey Bosa get some snaps purely to get into game shape. Do not risk him. Just make sure he gets some snaps, get his feet under him, and ready to go for the wild card. But outside of that, I want to see other guys step up. Jeremiah Tauchu, the ex-Charger, who stepped in for a couple of weeks, signed off of waivers I would say like a month ago. He's been looking okay. Let's see what he's got to offer. Let's give him a couple more reps. Carlo Kemp, Tyreek Maddox-Williams. We got some guys waiting in the wings that I honestly would like to see a couple snaps for this week, just to kind of see what we got in a live game environment. Okay? But like we mentioned before, I would say the unit that's worth most protecting on defense is going to be the defensive backs. Now, like we mentioned, I think Asante Samuel Jr., Michael Davis, these guys should get limited reps, maybe even rest as a whole. But I do feel like we've got potential deeper on this roster than the surface guys. Jasir Taylor is starting to look like a steal in the draft, right? A late round pick for the Chargers. He's been stepping up and looking great in coverage. Sure, he dropped an interception last week, but he was in position, right? Let's give him some more reps. The Chargers may really have something in this kid. JT Woods, 3rd round pick that Chargers fans are especially concerned about. He hasn't really seemed to elevate much since the offseason. Well, let's get a nice sample size. Let's see where he's at now. There's been some time since we've really called on him. Let's see JT Woods out there. And then, of course, there's another guy who hit IR way back. I'm not sure if he's back yet. I didn't see him listed in the injury report. Mark Webb. You guys remember that name? We hyped that name to Kingdom Come in the offseason. He may be back. Let's get some reps from Mark Webb back. The dude was a beast. He was uptrending last season. Let's see what he's got if he's available. Then you got other guys like Raheem Lane, dudes. One of those preseason gems as well. Let's see what he's got, dude. He was a fantastic safety option for the Chargers in the offseason. I want to see him in a live game environment. Let's give him some opportunities. And then even guys like Dean Leonard. Man, he's been looking so good on special teams. I think he found his place on this team as a special teams expert. He's been looking fantastic. Some of the best plays on special teams this season has come with, 33 on the field. Let's see what he's got to offer in terms of coverage. Again, maybe it's been a minute, and he wasn't especially impressive in the offseason, but let's just see what we got. Let's see what we got. That's what these weeks are for. I also wanted to give a tip of the hat to Nick Neiman, right? And Troy Reeder, the linebackers. These backups could see some nice reps as well. Them and Amin Agman-Bamiga. I think that's not a bad idea. But above all else, the Chargers defense been looking fantastic. Preserve the DBs, preserve the edge players, preserve the defensive line as much as possible. The offense has a whole bunch of pieces that you want to preserve for the wild card as well, but the number one thing above everybody else, the opportunities to step up, is going to be by this man right here. Not Justin Herbert, but the guy standing next to him, Joe Lombardi. This is the number one player that has an opportunity, so the number one Charger that has an opportunity to step up, the Chargers offensive coordinator. Because we have to all admit, right? Last week, before going into that game, we talked a lot about what this game entails, what this game allows you to do. And what they allowed you to do was experiment a little bit. Chargers are in no matter what. Let's go out there and see what works. Let's do things that we normally wouldn't do in a live game environment because we're not playing for our lives all of a sudden. And you know what happened? Joe Lombardi cut loose a little bit. And we saw a really nice air game. We saw nice opportunities for Justin Herbert to push the ball down the field. We saw some nice creativity and no fear behind executing it. That's what this environment allows you to do. If he can continue his solid play calling from last week, I think we're going into the postseason with some momentum offensively. So those are your opportunities to step up in terms of players, and of course the offensive coordinator who's been needing to step up. He showed great signs last week. We need to see him keep it up, despite if the starters are in or not. We need to see solid play calling. So let's start wrapping up this video, guys. I know we didn't talk too much about the Denver Broncos as a team, but there's a reason behind that. And I think you guys know what that is. This next segment called Russ's Last Ride. So what should we expect from the Denver Broncos? Oh, man. Well, you should expect, fuel, an igniter, and a big old dumpster to ignite it, dude. It's been a rough season for the Broncos, a rough season for Broncos fans, and certainly a rough season for Russell Wilson. Now, in how we face this team, I think a lot depends on who we start, right? Honestly, I even am at the point that I think our backups would stand a chance versus this team. That is how bad the Denver Broncos have been. Nothing would be more poetic, in my opinion, than for the Broncos to end their season with a loss to the Chargers backups. But again, that doesn't mean our starters couldn't play. I do think we may see a mix somewhere in there. So the Broncos as a team, in 2022, they have lost every single division game thrown at them that they've played this season. It's been bad. It's been awful. Their team is in shambles. They've got a whopping 23 players, I think, on injured reserve. It's been a disaster. Chargers fans understand that. That sucks, but at the same time, dude, the Chargers have survived. They're 10-6. The Broncos are what, 4 wins into the season? Horrible. And above all, their quarterback, Russell Wilson, has proven to be one of the biggest bust trades I've seen in a very, very long time. That decline we saw at the Seattle Seahawks, yeah, it was real. It was too real. It was more real than the Broncos or any of us ever expected. I expected the Broncos to be way better than they were this season. Their crippled offensive line, stifled running attack. They lost Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. Their wide receivers are banged up. Judy, Sutton. They're far away from what we feared at the top of the season. I felt that the Broncos had as good a shot as any team to turn it around and become Super Bowl contenders, and it was completely the opposite. And the Chargers defense, which has been on a sharp incline, they should have the advantage versus everything that we're seeing for the Broncos offense. It's been putrid. It's been horrible. But what about their defense, right? A lot of people will say, well, director, the Broncos defense, they've been good against us for decades. Not right now. I will say that, dudes. Over the past few weeks, I would even label them as putrid. They've allowed a combined 127 points over the last 4 games. 127 points. Highlighted by a 50-burger dropped on them by the Los Angeles Rams. And that's the same Rams team that we, the Chargers, just held to 10 points a week ago. This team's bad, man. This team's really, really bad. The Broncos are probably one of the biggest busts of 2022, and it puts a big old smile on my face to say, I think we got this. Even with the backups, I think there's still a solid shot. Broncos fans, you're going to have to wait another year and endure some more pain before any hope rolls around the corner. And I think so long as number 3's on that roster, hope's going to be a couple yards, couple miles away in the foreseeable future. So as far as me being concerned about the Broncos, almost not at all. Okay, you can't write off any team in the NFL. Of course, every team in the NFL is a professional football team. You have to take them seriously. But at this point, I only have a few things in the foreground that I'm concerned about. Keeping this team healthy, fighting for the 5th seed, and trying to discover momentum. Carry things that are successful via the offense and play calling. That's about it. That's about it. We could lose this game, and honestly, I don't think I'd be too upset. But at the same time, I want to be that poetic team that just has the last shovel of dirt in the grave of the 2022 Denver Broncos. So with that being said, what's my score prediction for this game in Week 18? Well, I got 2 predictions this week, and I think it's for obvious reasons. One's for if the starters are in or if they're out. So my first prediction in this one, the Chargers, if the starters sit, if they do not play this game, my score prediction is Chargers 21, Broncos 18. Yeah, I still got us winning by 3, so what? I think that's how bad the Broncos are this season. Sure, I guess if the Chargers backups lose and we still have the 5th spot, who cares, really? But I would love to see that narrative. Would love to see that narrative. Now, my second score prediction, if the starters do play, it's going to be a bloodbath, ladies and gentlemen. I got the Chargers winning this one 30-6. Again, if you needed like a cover art or if you needed a final chapter in the 2022 Broncos, that score feels pretty appropriate to me. Anyway, we're talking a lot of smack. In the end, there's a lot of things in this game that do carry significance for the Chargers going into the wild card. We'll list them off one more time for you dudes, okay? A lot depends how this game is played out. A lot depends on who's playing. But either way, again, I think the Bolts could grab a handle on this game. But let me reiterate this fact. If the Ravens win on Sunday morning versus the Bengals, this would throw the Chargers into focus to game mode, right? It's time to roll out Justin Herbert, grab this dub. And I would expect a good amount of reps for all of our starters for the most part. I would expect the Chargers to aggressively fight for an early lead in order to give themselves the opportunity to roll out with their backups for as long as possible. Does that make sense? So if the starters do need to play and the win is on the line to protect the 5th seed, I would expect Justin Herbert, the starters, to all roll out there, try and grab an early lead as quickly as possible, play as aggressively as possible, so that these guys can sit out most of the game. But the name of the game this week must be, in my opinion, protect the 5th seed. I know a lot of people are saying, it doesn't matter, we'll play whoever we need to play. Trust me when I say, at least in my opinion, it matters, right? I would much rather play the Jags, get that sweet revenge from earlier in the season, than I would risking it and rolling the dice versus the Bengals, okay? This is Justin Herbert's first playoff game. Let's let him ease on in a little bit. And even if our statistics are better just by a little bit, I want that slight advantage whenever I can get it. So number one, protect the 5th seed. This could be the difference, again, between playing the Jags or the Bengals in the wild card. Give me the better odds. Number two, and again, maybe just tied for number one. It's tough to say. It's tough to, number these because they're so important. Stay healthy, okay? Our postseason hopes could be vanquished if we're not careful with our players. So knock on wood, the Chargers do everything they can to keep their players upright. And finally, this is an opportunity to improve, right? Grab some momentum, improve, identify yourselves offensively, because defensively, we've been looking solid. Offensively, let's find an identity. And if all of this is welded together, it should offer the Chargers a solid opportunity to enter the postseason as one of the most dangerous teams in the AFC. So you guys in the comment section, let me know. Let me know your thoughts on the Chargers versus the Broncos. Please give a shout out to Damar Hamlin as well, man. A little heart or something, showing that we all have his back and the support of the entire NFL was behind him. Super excited to see him bouncing back. As well as let me know your thoughts as far as the Chargers in facing either the Jags or the Cincinnati Bengals, how your emotions are behind that. Those are the two most likely teams. Anything can happen, but at this point, it's the most likely. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you liked what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time, and as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Let's bury those Broncos.